Alright, so in this course we're gonna build a social media. We're gonna build one where you can follow other users. We're gonna allow you to basically go in and do all of that. So to get started, let's go in and install Laravel. I've already got it installed on my computer, but if you want to, you can easily just go in and install it using Composer. Alright, we are also going to use Nuxt.js, and with Nuxt.js we are going to be allowed to basically use that framework to make it easy to set everything up and basically just to do everything. So Nuxt.js is something that's built on top of VueJS, and we can easily install it using npx. Npx is something you can install using npm. Just run the global function and you can run npx. This will also work with React apps and so on. Throughout the course, I'm gonna use PHP Storm. You can use any code editor you want, but the reason why I'm using this is just to easily get through any kind of typos or errors and just have a fully integrated IDE. Beside that, I'm gonna use Postgres for the database. You can use SQLite, you can use MySQL, Postgres, whatever you fancy, so it's fairly simple. And we're gonna use buefy as the front-end framework. So to get started, we just need to create a Laravel project and then run the npx command to create the Nuxt.js application. Alright, so let's go in and create the Nuxt application. So in here we just want to leave the project name and the description and the author and just use JavaScript, and I'm using npm here. And let's set up the buefy as the standard, and we also just gonna use Axios progressive web app and .env file, and I'm just going with ESLint here for the code checking, and this one we can just leave as none, and we're gonna use the SSA one there, and I'm just going with the recommended one there. And something I cannot state enough is how important it is to have both URLs on localhost and not 127.0.0.1. This is because we are only authorizing the localhost domain in here. We're gonna go through more about that later on. Alright, so if we run the dev here, we can actually go in and open the URL. And in here you will actually see the applications running and rendering everything when it starts up. So if you're going to load it now, you will see the standard template for buefy, and obviously we're gonna get rid of that because we don't really need that kind of template. So let's go in and do that now. So in here we have the layouts file, and it's in here where we load all of the important things like the view file that will Nuxt.js Nuxt component that will load all of the routes. So that's very important to just set that up properly. In this case, I'm just gonna go with setting up a container in here, and you can also use a container fluid if that visual layout better. And we're going to use the Nuxt component to load in all of the views. And we're also going to create a partials folder that will contain our navigation bar, and we're just going to call that app.appnav.view. Inside here, what is really important is literally just to import all of the main components like the footer and the navigation bar that we are going to use in every single page. Everything else you're going to put inside the pages folder, and we can just set in the component for the navigation bar by writing component and then import appnav from partials appnav. So now this should be working. So one other thing we can do now is we can go inside and remove the inspire.view file. We don't really need that in here. And also go in here and make sure that we just get rid of everything on the home page and just leave it with a title of the home page. This is also in here where we're going to have all of the posts that you can post as a user. But we're going to focus on that later on. Right now we want to start out by setting up authentication and the base layout. So if you just grab this navigation bar from the buefy documentation, and what we can do here is we can just get rid of that, and then we can also just later on use that inside here for our own authenticated user, but we want to actually comment that out for now, and then later on we're going to use the view directory to just remove all of that, so we can check if you're logged in. You will be showing the login user and not you'll be asked to sign in or log in or register, sorry. And then let's also go in and create the authentication directory and account directory. The account directory is basically just where we're going to be able to edit the user details. Authentication directory, we just want to put in the sign in and sign up for now. And just add in a template just for now, and then later on we're going to set up all of the layout in here. And also we're going to take all of them to nlink or Nuxt link, and then we're going to add in the 2 here, so we can actually go in and update the navigation bar link to be working properly. Laravel sanctum is previously known as Laravel Airlock, is basically the one we're going to be using for setting up the authentication, at least the sign in and getting the X-CSRF tokens, which we can basically add in, and we're going to make that work with the Auth model from the Nuxt.js framework, just to make things a bit more simple. So there's a couple of things we need to set up in the configuration here, and when we have set all of that up, it will all be perfectly fine to go, and we can build from this application from there. So first of all, let's go in and just added in, and we don't really need to migrate but this file, but we still need to do it. I also need to set up the configuration file for the database properly, so if I just go in and do that here. Currently I'm just trying out an application called Table Plus, the trial version, and seeing how that works. So let's just go and create a table here and just set it into the environment file. I am throughout this video just gonna jump through some of the other projects I've used this template for and go in and copy and paste some of the configuration from there, just pretty quickly, just to literally just to get things going. So just copy and pasting the exact same database file. All of this I'm just running locally, obviously, but if we then go in there and add it, save it, and migrate the file, we will then be able to add in all of the migration files here. We're not going to use any tokens for this, but that's because we are going to be using the built-in authentication from Laravel. So what we can do now is we can just go and see if this actually created the tables, and it did. So that's actually everything from that part. Alright, so the last few things is we just want to set up is decide inside the kernel file and just set up the last configuration for Laravel's sanctum to be able to work. So inside the app directory we have the kernel file, and let's just add this inside the API. And make sure you import it up into the top here as well. And additionally, we also want to make sure when we use Axios that we use it with credentials to ensure that this will basically pass through the X-CSRF token to the backend, which then will be validated before we can send in any additional code. And also we want to add in the session domain, so it will basically only work on the domain you allow it to, which will be localhost in this scenario. So if you want this to 127.0.0.1, it will not work with any of it. And then we need to set up the course configuration, which we can, I'm just gonna grab from another project here. It's again fairly simple to set up, and I'm gonna just go through with you what we actually need to put in here. So just need to put in the login, the logout, and the URL for grabbing the CSRF token, and then add in with credentials from false should now be true. And then we need to create this as social network. And I want to state that we are doing a lot of configuration here, but the security is better than the previous applications, and it would be way easier to just build around the application later on using all of these configurations we set up here in the beginning. So it will really pay off in the long term. And we can literally just sign in by running these commands here, like log in and then passing the credentials, or going in here to get the cookies. So it's fairly simple to use this. We are going to create our own registration controller, but beside that everything else is going to be already pre-built. And we can also get rid of these two components while we are at it. But actually, there's